Welcome back to TMI with Teryl and Martha. It is so great to be here with you. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We would love to have you put what you're thinking in the comments. We'd love topic ideas in the comments. So we look forward to you being a part of what we talk about every week. And I think we hit the nail on the head this week.
I think we did.
Because I've been thinking, obviously, I had a heart attack on February the 5th, and so I'm in that recovery phase. I feel really good, but I'm still in that place where I'm afraid of everything.
Yeah.
You know,
like this is the...
Yeah. I feel good. Everything's measuring right, all those kind of things. But I still am in the place where every little burp, every little pain I have,
like what
every
is that?
Could this be it again?
Yeah.
And so I'm there, and it's normal to be there.
It is.
But it's also managing that stress. So, you know, we thought we'd talk about managing stress today.
We did. And you know what's so funny is that we always seem to be on the same channel, the same back channel. You know, Martha and I we don't get to talk to each other all during the week. She's busy, I'm busy. But when we come together, we're always on the same page, which is a really neat thing when it comes to female relationships.
Yes, it is. I agree 100%.
More than men.
Women are very difficult.
Yeah, we are.
But that's another topic for another day.
Complex individuals. But
well, you know, both of us grew up in the time where we maybe were one of few women in the workplace.
Yeah.
There was this attitude among other strong women that there's only room for one woman in the workplace.
Well, we were our worst enemies.
Yes, absolutely. And then it was figuring out the relationship with men too, and how that was going to work, because every woman in the workplace is not looking for a boyfriend. Okay. And that's kind of the way, you know, it was. People thought that.
Do we need to be, it's nice to have somebody talk sweetly to us on occasion, but nor do we need to be sugar-coated and coddled. And I think we both came from that background too, because like in your industry, getting to hear your discussion that you had with Monica Pearson was amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of came through the same thing in being a female in hospitality management, where it was mostly men.
Yes.
In that line.
Well, let's be face it. It was mostly men everywhere.
Well,
okay. Until we theoretically, you know, started getting in cars and going to work. You know, that happened after World War II. Prior to that, people kind of lived over the business, or maybe they lived on the farm, or they lived in the neighborhood where the business was.
Yeah.
And then after World War II, people started getting in the car and driving away. And that's when the image of the idle housewife came along, which was always a lie.
Yes.
Okay.
There's
always
no
a lie.
such thing. And, you know.
And the reason why I want women to get along better, and this is why I want to talk about stress today, is because there is no such thing as a non-working woman. Okay.
True.
If you stay at home all day, or if you go to work, or if you do a combination of both, you are managing the household. You know, even though it has not changed that men are identified from 25 to 55 by what they do.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Women have changed their roles to some degree, but I'm sorry, when you walk into somebody's house, you don't think the guy's not keeping it neat.
Right.
You think the woman's, and that stress comes along from
Never
that
has
expectation.
That changed.
Because they don't care that much. I mean, honestly.
And you know, there are your breakout few. You know, we never talk about the entire population when we talk about individual situations, but when you look at an average, you know, it does work out that way. And we've mentioned that on several shows about how, you know, the expectations that are placed on women, even though we're now out in the workforce as heavily as the men.
Well, I remember having a conversation with my son when he was having his third child, and he makes less money than his wife does. And when you have really young children, the daycare costs are astronomical.
Yeah.
I mean, astronomical.
Today more than ever.
You know, today more than ever.
Yeah.
Good daycare is astronomical.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, you know, nobody will think less of you if you took 3 years and just, because
raise your children.
He's the guy, not only does his wife make more money, but he's also the guy that is better at cooking and better at, you know, no offense to anybody who's listening, but, and that's why I'm not mentioning names, so just have to figure it out for themselves. But he made a different choice, and that's fine. And that's kind of my rule. One of my ways to reduce stress with my immediate family is that they're all grown. My children are 34 to almost 44.
Right.
And they have spouses and they've been out on their own now for 15 or 20 years. Okay. It's not for me to tell them what to do, even though I want to.
You've done your job.
Yeah, I've done my job. Lynn says, my husband says, Martha, it's not about us anymore.
Well,
and it's hard to get there when you're the mom because
I know
in a big family, you have this paradox.
Yeah.
Okay. In order to raise a good big family, you got to be kind of controlling.
Well, you are the matriarch.
Yes.
And you always will be the matriarch, but the role of the matriarch changes.
And when they get older, you have to let go.
Yeah. And that's one thing I have to say. My husband married me when I had 3 young girls. And we had a conversation the other day that
he's a good one, by the way.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you, took on a woman with 3 young girls, ranging from high school to middle school to elementary school. And one of the things he actually helped me with is you cannot solve all their problems for them, because if you continue to do that, you are going to debilitate them from being able to solve their own problems. I was shocked. I thought, oh, you mean that's not my job? I'm a problem solver. I do that for everybody. You do too. That's
what we do.
Sewn into type A personalities, really.
Well, we're talking about stress today, and I'm a stress magnet. I take on other people's stress and solve their problems and, get them in touch with people. And it's what I've been doing my whole life. And now I have to do it differently.
Yes. And you were good at it. But so, you really made it into an art. You were really good at it. But your current situation shows us all, including yourself, that it doesn't matter how good you are at handling stress. It doesn't mean your body is that good at handling stress. Power women, all of you out there, power women, we know how to handle problems. That's how we got to be who we are. And multitask and where we are. Hey, good job waiting
Which
tables
creates
is
stress
good
on its own.
Too. Yeah. But we override our own body's signals many, many times because we do not have time to deal with being down for any reason. And so I think that is part of the problem that we have. And so even though we think if somebody says, hey, are you stressed? You got anything going on? You're like, no, I'm good. I got it all. My plates are spinning.
Yes.
Yes. And as long as the plates are spinning, you feel like you're good. You got it all under control. Meanwhile, your body is taking on stress because the emotions get packed into the body and into the heart, and sadness that maybe wasn't dealt with, or a loss of or sickness, being ill. You had a viral impact too. So these things we're like, charge through it, decongestants, whatever. We're going to get on our day. And our body's like, nah.
Well, I used to always tell my kids sleep is the best medicine. But did I take my own advice? No, I did not. And so I think that, I've been thinking a lot over the last few days where there's been a number of stories out about the next generation behind. I'm not saying I've written off the people between, 28 and 40, but I have not written them off. But they are raising their children very differently.
Oh.
And I think they're making their children more stressful. Okay. And I'm not saying everybody, but I've noticed that there's a lot of kids who are not doing the things that I did or my children did at the same ages. And I'm not saying like I came home by myself, but my mom went back to work when I was 6. And for the first couple of years, my sister was still at home.
Right.
And so that was me and her coming home in the afternoon. We did have a maid that came 3 days a week. That was very common. And so there was adult there 3 days a week.
Yeah.
But it was not uncommon for me to come home and have a little note from my mom saying, here are the ingredients to the dinner. Just preheat the oven to 350.
That's
and
great.
Please put this in.
I mean, what a skill.
And there's
learned.
a lot of folks that are uncomfortable doing that with their own children in today's world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, today's world, you can't even let them go outside. We were just watching that really cute video that we'll show everybody here at some point because it was really sweet about kids from our decade, like being told about future now and how bizarre it was to them, and so like we can't really even comfortably let our kids go play even at a neighbor's house without fully engaging with the neighbors, knowing who they were, blah, 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 phone numbers exchanged, tagging the kids everywhere they go, no going outside after dark. Oh no. And really neighbors don't even really know each other anymore.
Yeah, and I think some of that's true, but I think how much of that have we put on ourselves, where
it's hard to say.
I will say that also my son and daughter-in-law live on a cul-de-sac where they do actually know their neighbors and their kids do go out and play. And I think as much as kids of today can have kind of a normal
got a good scenario
thing, they've got a pretty good scenario.
Yeah,
my other son, they have the same kind of situation. They're in a cul-de-sac where they can ride their bikes and be in sight. Because I used to talk about taking my children to the high school football games, and I loved doing that because you could let them be free, but you could still lay eyes on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't know you were watching every little thing they were doing. I mean, they learned it later when they grew up. Oh, you were watching us all the time. But at the time, they thought they were negotiating on their own. They thought they were doing, but it was a safe environment to let them run around.
That's how you do that. You know, and I tell my kids, when I told them all when they were little, I said, this is when I want you to mess up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say go out there and mess up. I'm not saying that. But that's when they've got the yolk sack of protection underneath us. This is when we should be letting them kind of feel their age appropriate responsibilities out on their own. And, today's world, the stress through 24-hour engagement on not just the parent, but the children. When I remember my mom growing up she was also working, but she was a stay-at-home mom, but she started her own business. She was an entrepreneur and she started in living things. So it was like an Avon party, but for plants. Oh, and we had a big greenhouse in our backyard. She was in the paper because we had plants for curtains. We didn't have any window treatments. It was always plants around our home. It was really cool. And she would load up the back of this old station wagon and go to people's houses. And I would go with her and help sometimes and just be her, person. But she was busy. She was always busy. But it was more affordable to be a stay-at-home mom back then than it is now. But the stress that we deal with as grandparents and parents with children and children dealing with the 24-hour phones. Everybody knows your business. Everybody knows where you're going. Downtime is very difficult to have. And,
Yeah, and I mean, the stress of knowing where everybody is all the time. My kids are very much about sharing their locations, and they can look, oh, where's someone? I'm not even somebody that lives in their town that's their relative. Oh, where are they right now? It's like, really? No. They tried to I did that, I guess, for a trip.
Right.
I shared it with because we were meeting up and things like that. But then I realized one day I was taking my grandson for a tour of the vet school at UGA, and my son that lives out of town called me and goes, is there something wrong with the dog? I see you're at the vet school at UGA. No. And I'm like, okay, this is too much. How do I turn this off?
Yeah.
Because I think that you got to have, like the kid said, you can't just, in the video we were talking about that we'll show at some point in time, you can't just lay in the grass. I mean, I used to do that on a hot summer day. I'd go out and lay in the grass.
Nothing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And just think about the world going by.
Yeah.
And my daughter teaches dance, and she teaches mostly, she has some little girls, but mainly it's the middle school girls. And she says, Mom, they're so busy.
Yeah.
They're tired when they get to me. They're 12 years old. They're exhausted because they, my mom says I need to do all this stuff for my resume.
Yes.
She's 12.
I know.
Okay. And
I see it. And they're driven.
Yes.
They are driven. And, I got, I bought gymnastics classes for my little granddaughter as a birthday present. She loves gymnastics, but that's it. That's all she does. One day a week, the gymnastics. The rest of the time, she's a kid, which, is maybe it's coming back around because, we were talking a little bit too about, how a new generation of people are kind of acting more grandma-like.
Yeah, they're doing more grandma activities like
love
knitting and
it.
crocheting and mahjong.
Yeah.
They're going back to the mall because they're
Yeah.
tired of shopping online because
Love
it's,
it.
they're going to church.
I love
They're getting married younger. They're deciding to have kids younger. And it's going to be interesting because I think this generation that's waiting till they're 40 or not at all, and then the generation that's having them younger, their kids are going to bump into each other.
They are.
Because,
I was going to say, because that's kind of a counterindicative of the decade prior.
Yes,
Right? It's kind of like, but, I have several young girls that help me here at the farm that feed the animals at night. And one of them is just so precious. She is new here to Gainesville. She moved from the Midwest, but she knits. She does little paints and stuff at night, and she does mahjong with her friends, and she loves to play board games, and she likes to be in bed at 9:30 at night. And she's 24. She's a teacher. And I'm just like, okay, is this a thing? Is this happening?
Well, I think everything runs in cycles, right?
Yeah.
And as far as the stress is concerned, this stress of knowing everything all the time, I have this theory that communication methods have a good side and a bad side. Okay. So the good side is you and I can get together. We can
Right.
talk about things that are interesting. We can bring people into the conversation. The bad side is listening to one after another all day long.
Yeah.
And losing
Binge.
track of what you should be doing during the course of the day.
Right.
Or need to do during whatever the answer is. It's the same thing. Bill
Too
Gates.
much of a good thing is a bad thing.
Bill Gates,
sometimes.
who, has a very complicated history right now. But he wrote this book called The Road Ahead back in 1995. And he talked about this paradox between communications methods. And he said that, and I don't know if this is a true story or not, but it's believable to me, is that the Gutenberg press, the first book was a Bible. And the second book was a medieval porn book.
Yeah.
And so there's a good side and a bad side to every single communication method. And I think that we probably peaked out on knowing everything about everything. And so my mantra now.
Maybe it's kind of the pendulum swinging kind of.
Right. I think my kind of mantra right now is that you can't control what's going on 10,000 miles away from you or 5,000 or even maybe 100. But you can find something in your own backyard that is like the young girls that are helping you feed your animals.
Right.
Or a charity that you like, or something that's going to get you out of this scrolling kind of world that we have put ourselves in and get you back with what I like to call the three-dimensional people.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to start seeing less health crises as we go along. The more we could get people moving again, naturally moving, the more we can get people eyeball to eyeball, touching, hugging. Those are all things that help, promote health. And, it's funny, you have in your recent event, you have had to step back and really reconsider your lifestyle and look to what can you afford to shift and not shift, and how can you merge into a new mental awareness and not be like as if you were like my youngest daughter had a car wreck in Denver and her car was totaled. It was a very traumatic event. It's all she can do to get in the car and drive to work. She's still a little traumatized from that. And so it's the same thing when you have a physical breakdown like that. Your memory's there, the body's, you're constantly more observant of what's happening around you than you were prior, and what's happening in you. What's that tickle? What's that cough? And, it's like, so that's stressful on its own, but it's a phase. It's just a phase. You're going to be moving through it.
You got to change. And I know you have some expertise in this because you've been a trainer and that kind of thing. It's kind of like you don't start an exercise session without stretching first. You probably shouldn't start your day without having some quiet time where you just think, in my world, I try to listen to God.
Right.
I try to spend some time to think about my blessings.
That's great.
And,
That's incredible.
And spend some time to just start out on a calm, not jump out of bed and being ready to go. Right. I think that's a misnomer. You ought to think about your day.
You ease into your day.
Ease into your day.
Well, I wrote a blog post on that and about how the first 5 minutes minimum of your waking hour are some of the most important minutes of your day. And how you choose even just to view your world before you put your feet on the floor in those moments is hugely important, and the gratitude and the awareness of, I woke up today. First of all, that is an incredible blessing. The fact that you open your eyes and you woke up, right? Step one.
Yeah.
I don't care what the situation is going around. There's awful situations out there, and I'm not taking from that. But you have a moment that day. And that's why I've always been a morning girl. I love the mornings because the world is quiet. And I guess, for nighttime people, it's also quiet, late at night. But the sunrise to me is just magical. And so that's hugely important. And I find time every day for me personally to do a sauna, right? So I have a far infrared sauna. I found that far infrared sauna has provided more health benefits that I can even speak about. So if anybody out there is interested, far infrared saunas, the heat saunas, heat does so much for your body. And then you add the red light. And mine has the lights that switch to the colors. But it's my time to meditate, talk to God, to do my prayers. I even do breath work in there. So today I was listening to a YouTube on how breathing in and out through your nose, just closing your mouth, just gentle breathing increases nitric oxide in your body. That nitric oxide stimulates and opens up your blood vessels naturally, right? So the more we're conscious of our breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. Yoga had it on the nose, literally had it on the nose. That's funny. I didn't mean to say that, but it's funny. So yeah, yoga is they do a lot of nose breathing in yoga, but I didn't realize that act alone creates the nitric oxide in your body that stimulates your blood vessels and your capillaries to expand so that you can get proper blood flow through the body. And, it's pieces of information like that this is why I'm so excited that we talk about our worlds and the things that we do. And, you have to think about your day more specifically now every day. Do you find yourself in the last week or two either saying no more or really looking at your calendar and pausing and saying, do I really need to do this, that, or the other? Have you gotten to that point yet?
Definitely. I mean, I'm saying no to a lot of things. I'm trying to protect my weekends as much as possible. I take a pretty long time in the morning, even though I'm a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
I have a pretty long routine now of, having to take some time to just kind of have some quiet time,
reflect,
do my Bible study, but also just, kind of just rest. I know you've just woken up, but just kind of like rest before you get into the day. And I have about a 2-hour routine, which I know doesn't make sense to a lot of people, before I get into the shower and, get off with my day.
Yeah.
And I've had to, for those of you that may have tuned in late, I had a heart attack on February the 5th. And so I'm, trying to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Right.
And be prepared for it if it does.
Right.
I am thankful because I got great care and you find out the people that really care about you.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody today that I called back for the first time and about a conference I'm going to in June. And he was like, oh, I just have been holding off calling you because I didn't want to bother you, but I'm so happy to hear your voice. I've been thinking about you, and it makes me, feel really good when that kind of thing happens. And then, you also have to understand that it's a traumatic thing even for the other people in your life.
Yeah.
And so just because they don't get back to you the way you thought they would, it doesn't mean anything bad. And so I'm just trying to letting go sounds like such a trite term, but I'm just trying to just be.
Let it be. Remember that song?
That's right. I remember the song. I'm going to the Beatles children's houses this summer when I go to England. So I'm excited about that. But and I'm actually going to be talking to James Rosen on one of my radio programs on WDUN.
Oh, fun.
He's written a book about Antonin Scalia, who is a former Supreme Court justice, but he's a big Beatles expert. So I
boy.
can't wait to talk to him about all that
That'll
stuff.
be
So,
fun.
yeah, I'm a big Beatles fan, so I love that. But I think it's just finding, and it takes a little work because those thoughts you've been having for 60 years.
They don't go away overnight.
They don't go away overnight.
Yeah.
So you've got to talk them away.
Yeah.
And I'm very much, I'm a religious person. So if things get kind of dark in my head, I say, get thee away from me, Satan.
Yeah.
And it works for me. But also I try to redirect, redirect my thoughts because you've been doing things this way for 50 years.
Right.
And
it's habit. It's a habit.
It's hard to break habits. It takes time to break habits.
And sometimes the habits break you before you can break the habit.
And that's what I don't want to happen.
No. I thought we were headed that direction.
Well, because it was sort of meant as a compliment that you can handle a lot of stress. And I think in some ways that it is a compliment. But in other ways, it's like you're just taking stress off of other people. So their lives are better and your life is worse.
Right. Well, that's that's the definition of women in general.
Yeah.
I think we were raised that way, or we were just, we just have that in our DNA.
Well, a sign of a good woman is one that can do everything.
Right.
And I do love Proverbs, but there are descriptions of women in there that are just totally unattainable. I mean, as far as what, she makes her own clothes, she goes out and cooks the food, it's like, I love you, Lord, okay? But
there's only so much
I can do in one day. So it's like, it's crazy. And just letting yourself have some grace and letting other people have some grace. That's the other part of it. Being as compassionate with yourself as you are with other people.
Extend that. That same gratitude and graciousness.
For years, I have thought about marriages in the way that if we were as nice to our spouses as we were to our friends, if we put up with as much from our spouses as we do from our friends, we probably would have no divorces,
right.
Because there's always this expectation that you have with your spouse, and
that's really the biggest stress for women too in in marriages.
Yes,
is managing that relationship, because sometimes we try to overmanage it, micromanage it.
Well, I think this assumption that they always know what you're thinking, that if they love me enough, they would know this, or, hey, they've seen this 5,000 times, they should know it by now.
Right.
But one of the lessons I've learned through this stress management and a little bit beforehand is if I have to say to my husband, hey, honey, I really need you to do X, he will do it without complaining.
Right.
He just can't think of everything the way I do.
No. And, that book, was it Women Are from
Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Venus.
Yeah,
okay.
So true.
I literally was just telling my youngest daughter that she's engaged, and she's in that process. They've been together about 3 or 4 years, and they've had some stresses. She's gone through her master's, different things. So she's in that process of trying to figure out, okay, when things are tense, what does that mean? Or if we're nitpicking at each other all the time, or, he's stressed, I'm stressed. That happens, especially in committed long-term relationships. One's going to go up, the other one's going to go down. The other one goes down, the other one goes up. It's more of a matter of how you learn to talk to each other. And the communication is really key. And what you just said is important, is knowing that men aren't going to behave like women. Women aren't going to behave like men. So instead of us trying to read each other's minds, we do need to learn how to say something in a manner in which the other person can translate that.
And, while we are very important in our children's lives, especially when they're younger, because our husbands do things differently doesn't mean they're wrong.
Right.
And my niece had a baby last July, and she didn't think she could have children. She turned 40 in October. And she has such a great attitude about her marriage. She was like, they've been together 17 years. They've been married 17 years. And she said, it's a decision every day.
Yeah.
It's a decision every day.
It is. And you can be in your 60s, or you could be in your 20s, 30s. You're still facing the same challenges. at just different levels. And my husband was joking with my daughter while I was talking to her on the phone. He goes, just because you're older doesn't mean you're always wiser, and you still have trouble, the same trouble you're facing right now, but you learn how to manage it. I think with maturity, you gain a better ability to manage the stress and the pressures and the conversations, and you don't turn everything into the hill you want to die on.
Yeah, you should be that way anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm hoping you don't do that.
I do have a little bit after all I've done for you.
Yeah.
How can you treat me this way?
Yeah.
And I have to watch that. And that's a stressor too, like, because you have these expectations. What's the old saying? Expectations breed disappointment.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you shouldn't expect anything from anybody. I certainly don't say that. But you will limit your stress if you are just accepting of where things are.
Right.
And realistic about where things are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I will say I am probably I'm the girl with the glass half full. I will always see the best in every single human, sometimes to my own demise, right? So I've learned over time that you have to be discerning.
Yeah, you do.
But loving.
Right.
That you can do both.
Right.
I used to think, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and all of that. But now I've gotten to the point where I can still be loving and kind, but be discerning as to who, how close I go in or out of any other circle. If that makes sense.
It's like, I wish I could be like those Hallmark moms. And they're not the main Hallmark mom in the story. Okay, they're the grandmother in the story.
Right.
And this kid hadn't come home for Christmas in 10 years, but she's so happy to see him and everything goes smoothly once he gets there. And of course he meets up with his old high school girl. No, that's not the story I want.
But
that's not the story I want. But those women, and I realize they're not real women. I mean, they're two-dimensional women. They're not three-dimensional women. But you still look at it, and I think that's the kind of attraction to those kinds of stories is because everything is it fits together so nicely, but life is messy. It's really messy, and we have to watch out, I mean, and I loved my mother so much. She was such a thoughtful person, but she was a bit of a martyr, and I have that same.
My mom is too.
I have that same quality. The after all I've done for you, kind of situation. And that creates, when you have such high expectations of other people, I'm not saying you shouldn't expect a lot from other people, but you need to be where they are. And because nobody really wants to disappoint you. Okay.
Yes,
that's not what people really want to do. They're not going out every day going, boy, I really hope I let everyone in my life down today. That's not the truth.
I'm just going to go out and make everybody mad today.
That's right. I'm just going to be in my own spot.
Yeah.
And there's so many places all throughout the day where you can manage your stress. And I have learned that. And
it is really a moment by moment.
It's moment by moment. And you just make a decision. You take a deep breath. You make a decision. Do I have to win this battle today? No. Does it have to be a battle? No.
Right.
Can I put this off till tomorrow? Yes.
That's the same conversation I had with my daughter last night, pretty much, is before you go in that house, think about who you're going to be when you go in that door.
Yep.
Because you already know you're a lit fuse and anything can happen. And so, and then of course, she's like, oh. And so
I hate it when you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, you're turning on me now. That's okay. You do that. It would save him some bloodshed. But, it's a good, healthy thing to get through those things. There's no way you're going to get through life without having to manage stress, especially today.
Yep.
With how much we're being exposed to on a regular basis.
I have so much understanding and acceptance now of my children that have children that, and this kind of ties back to all the screens, they have children in school.
Right.
And every teacher's got an app. They send messages all the time, and you can't over communicate. Do a newsletter once a week. There's nothing so important that all throughout the day, all day, you have to update people on what they're supposed to be doing because it's exhausting.
They didn't eat. They pooped.
Yeah.
They peed. They didn't poop. They didn't pee.
Yeah. My son said, you need to see, because I was a little frustrated because I said, it takes y'all forever to get back to me. And it's like, my little bubble is my children and grandchildren, I don't make them wait.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You have a certain few that those are the people
there's a certain few that I don't make them wait.
Right.
Okay. And so I'm not on that list with them.
Right.
But I understand now why I'm on that list.
Because the texts are just ongoing.
They'll have
just
500
constant.
unseen texts.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yikes.
it don't even figure out the emails that people are sending. And I get the communication is great and you want to be on top of all that stuff. But I would just say to whether you're a teacher or a boss or whatever it is, think, and think about the boundaries. We need to I think one great tool to manage stress is reintroducing boundaries.
And I think,
I'm working on that.
Change can happen the minute more than one person. Remember that verse in the Bible where two or more agree, it shall be so.
Yeah.
That is a real creative statement. Now that can take you in a good direction or that can take you in a horrible direction, depending on where the agreements are. But I think if we can find enough people in agreement saying something needs to change here, the life expectancy is decreased. We'll probably do an RFK Jr. update before too long and talk about more Maha food changes. But, the food is kind of has been in bad shape. The stress is high. Life expectancy has dropped. That's evidence. That is all evidence that something very, very important needs to change in our society.
Well, and I think it's management of stress, but it's also, you touched on the RFK thing, is eating better food.
Yeah.
Because the one thing you do to your body every day is put food in it.
And it will determine how you behave sometimes.
I'm terrified of all my frying pans right now. I mean, it's like all these commercials.
What's in there?
I mean, you talk about a new stressor. It's like, I mean, how many, I'm terrified of my frying pans, and I'm even thinking about buying like a $400 frying pan that's supposed to have no chemicals in it, no things in there.
Forever chemicals.
Because it keeps, to my point about, I'm not completely off my phone,
right.
but it keeps popping up in my mahjong that I'm playing on my phone,
Oh,
I'm not playing with other people, but I've probably looked at it too long. You know what I mean? If you gaze at it too long, they know.
It goes into the algorithm. They got you now. You're going to spend mark my words, she's going to spend $400 on a frying pan.
That's right. It's so
ask
crazy.
You next time we get
well,
together.
I'm going to have, and I have a new set of frying pans sitting under my desk because what I started to do, because I mean, before someone told me this stuff that peels off of your frying pans is bad for you, I kind of figured if it was peeling off of your frying pan, it's probably bad for you. So I kind of exchange them out pretty regularly. And look for what's the latest and greatest. So I'll admit to that. So I have this set now. I don't even know what I'm going to do with this set of frying pans.
Honestly, everything's going to kill you at some point. Microwaves, no. Toss the microwaves. Frying pans, don't spray the weeds. Please don't spray the weeds.
Plastic and microwaves. Have you gotten terrified of that?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't like to drink out of plastic water bottles. I mean, at a certain point, it's no wonder we're all stressed out.
That's right. There's too many rules.
We got to just live our lives. And I think the most important aspect of that is common sense, practical, 80-20, be really conscious of certain things up, 80% of your life and then have a lot of fun. I did use AI to do a silly dance because I really can't dance very well, but I found out I could take a picture of me and put it into AI. And then all of a sudden I'm doing this really cool dance.
So just today, there's a new service out there for people in journalism to figure out if it's a deep fake video. So that's another thing that's going to stress me. But we are talking about everything from kids to AI to work and what the stressors are and how to make them better. And I think that's, it's going to be different for me and Teryl and for you, but acknowledge what your stressors are and make a difference. Because let me tell you something, folks, this heart attack I had on February 5th was completely stress induced. So I can't blame my calcium score was 0. My arteries were clear. Yeah. It was totally stress induced. So I'm paying attention. Yeah. And I hope you are too. And we're so glad to be here with you. And we're going to continue doing this. So like and subscribe to YouTube. Tell us what you think. And Teryl, thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we decided to do this, not knowing you were going to go and have a heart attack.
Seriously, no one would plan that.
No. And, I mean, she and I just decided to start doing this several months back now. We've got many, many episodes in the shoots. Please watch them, not all at one time. Don't binge them. There's a lot there now. But watch them, share with your friends, comment for us if you're watching on YouTube. Please help us get the word out, because Martha and I, we do love what we do. We look to change the world, even if we're doing it one person at a time, because we know that your wellness deserves a little oversharing.